The big one, Chelsea versus Tottenham. We're going to be getting into the tactical preview today, speaking about a few ways that I think this game could go, how Chelsea could set up, how Tottenham could set up, because we've had a bit of news from the press conferences in terms of injuries, and we're just going to get into the crux of it. So, if you could, please do leave a like, subscribe, comment. Everything that helps out the video helps the channel. We're on 7.5k subs now. We're really striving to hit 10k by the end of the year. We've only got 2 months to do it. So please, please, please do your part. Help me out. And that's all I'm going to say about it. So let's get into it. So, how do I think Chelsea could set up? I think we're going to get into this part once we've touched on the key areas of this game that I think are going to be important both on and off the ball. And now what I want to point out to begin with is an area that you can exploit Tottenham. And we've seen it in certain games this season in the Premier League, but we've also seen it very much so in the game against PSG, which is a game that I watched back because it is one where they went into a back five, and you can probably tell by the tactics board, this is what I think Tottenham are going to do. The main reason for that is that they've got Romero now coming back from injury. That has been confirmed today in his press conference, Thomas Frank. And therefore, I do think that, again, for a few reasons in terms of set pieces that we're going to cover in this video, long throws, I do think they're going to go for a back five, which includes Romero, Van de Ven, and Kevin Danso. And Kevin Danso being a very important one to sort of keep an eye on for multiple different reasons. However, one thing that I do think Tottenham can be exploited within is how active their midfielders are to sort of step up and try and apply pressure on the ball, whilst the fullback is often quite quick to engage with a defender. And whether that's a winger or a fullback, what often happens in these wide sort of isolations for Tottenham is there becomes this space where a player can move into the blind side of one of the midfield players or away from the centre-back. Again, they've sort of come away from this space here to be able to attack this half space. And I think that that is absolutely key. And if we skip to the end here, we see it happening against PSG, the exact same thing. Again, he's sort of squaring him up, Hakimi there. He knows that ball's going to go in there. He's playing right close. He's literally followed, I think it's a doggy on this occasion, all the way out to basically be right behind him. So he has no idea where he is, slips that pass down into the blind side. Defender can't get across in time. Ball goes in. And this is how PSG get back into the game and draw it 2-2 with Tottenham. So that is the main factor in terms of just settled play and trying to play through Tottenham. I want to see more half-space combinations because I just don't think we utilise them enough. And it's going to be important that not only these players make those runs into here, but also the wingers or the fullbacks, if the opportunity presents itself, and this is what we're going to talk about with the tactics, can they attack that half space? And it's something that I've said about using Esteval in that way in certain games would be really, really key for us. Now, I don't think Esteval is going to start this game, and again, we're going to get into it. So let's talk a little bit more about the defensive sort of side of how I think Tottenham are going to set up. Now, this is against Brighton in a back four. But another thing that I wanted to point out is whether they're in a back four or a back five, I do think that Tottenham are going to be aggressive with Thomas Frank. They're very man-to-man orientated, whether that's from the front, from goal kicks, pressing high, or even in their sort of mid-block stage. They're very man-to-man sort of oriented with how they press and how they apply pressure on the ball. And this is Van de Ven stepping out on this occasion, and this leaves the space for Minter to run in behind. So that's something to sort of point out when it comes to the fact that, yes, even if they are going to play a back five, they can get caught where they're stepping up. And if we move on, there'll be another example of that here soon. So just to touch on it, when they played in this back five against PSG, it was Porro who was jumping forward to press Nuno Mendes, and he did that in a really, really good way. Kudus was then sort of drifting in from that right side, basically playing as a second striker, applying pressure on the centre-back. You have Richarlison, you have Pat Matsar. So that front four press was really effective in that sense. Now, again, the biggest reason Kevin Danso is a big part of this game, one, because the return of Romero allows them to play back five. And we know that Chelsea have struggled when it comes to playing in that back five because it means that those wide centre-backs can sort of jump up and be aggressive with these pocket players. And Chelsea haven't really got those runners. At the minute, they're either not utilising them enough or the profiles aren't available, such as Delap, and Jackson, of course, has been moved on. that they aren't utilising the spaces when those players do jump out. So that's one thing that I think could affect us with how Tottenham can now play a back five. But of course, the other thing being that they now can get Danso into the squad. And of course, the biggest part here is that Chelsea have struggled with set pieces and from long throws. Now, if you go back to yesterday's video, I'm not going to go into the depth of it again because we spoke about it after the Wolves game and there is a specific video for it. So if you want to learn more about Chelsea's issues with defending set pieces and throw-ins and just the physical sort of areas of the game that we're struggling with right now, go check out yesterday's video because that will help you to do so. But Danso not only being good in the air from corners, but he has this long throw. And Chelsea were caught out overloading the front side with this red and being caught at the back side with this green box. And this is something Tottenham have been able to exploit as well. And I think that if we are unable to deal with that, this will be one of the key sort of figures of this game where Tottenham can hurt us from set pieces. And again, if you haven't seen the video, go check it out because the numbers for Chelsea in terms of defending set pieces is absolutely atrocious. And that is where Tottenham will be looking to hurt us, which again is why I think it just makes so much sense for them to go with the idea of playing with a back five, looking to stunt us with our central progression and then hurt us with set pieces and the limited chances that they can get from that. So it makes a lot of sense for them to do this. Now, just a few more images from the PSG game before we get onto the tactics board. Quite a narrow front five press here. Kudus again pressing inside. They very much were leaving those sort of wide areas for PSG to progress through, really stopping them trying to progress through the middle of the pitch instead. If we move on to here, again, you can see the aggression. Danso, the one stepping out all the way with Doué on this occasion. Yes, Porro's going to sort of cover that depth, so you do still end up with a back four. But again, Danso is basically up in a midfield three at this point. If you look where he's stepped, Polina's jumped all the way forward. So they're very active, and like I say, with that man-to-man pressure in how they're going to step up and apply that press to make sure that you aren't able to sort of play through the lines with minimal pressure applied. And that's going to be key in this game. But again, in a back five this time, like I said earlier with the Brighton example, in a back four, this one in a back five against PSG, you can see that if they can find that spare man between the lines, Tottenham are then aggressive to jump out and they can be a little bit jumpy with that back line, which will leave that space to be attacked in behind. Now, of course, you have Mickey van der Ven, who is an extremely good recovery defender. They have that pace to sort of defend that higher line. And it's something they, of course, used under Ange. And I'm not saying that they use that high line to any degree of that, how they did last season. But like I said, I think they've still got some tendencies within that back line to be quite jumpy. So I do think you can exploit them with those balls through the lines. It's just utilising them and having the off-ball runs to do so. Again, same shape, the back five and the narrow five in the middle of the park, looking to sort of force that progression to the wings. So now that we've got through that, this is what I think that Chelsea could set up like. Now, what I will say is the only thing I've chosen here, a Chempong, that's more me saying what I would like to see. I have a feeling this is going to be Chalobah, if I was to predict. But I'm going to put a Chempong in there because I'm going to explain what I think this game is going to entail. So to begin with, how I think they're going to press us, like I said, I think you've got what I think they want is the option playing in a back five. Now, not only to play the three central defenders, as I said, it's something that has hurt Chelsea in the past, but it's also a personnel thing for their set pieces, having Danso in the team. Because if they do play a back four, likelihood is Danso won't play. It'll be Romero and Van der Ven. Very good central defensive partnership. But I think that this is a good opportunity for them to utilise a back five whilst getting a good profile into the team to help them with set pieces, which is a viable way of beating Chelsea right now. So that's why, like, the two reasons I think they're going to do this. Now, of course, the idea here would be, can they set up in a 5-4-1 off the ball when Chelsea get settled possession? However, what I don't think they're going to do, even if they do play in a back five, is sit off. I do think they're going to be aggressive. I think they're going to go more or less man for man in the sense of having those wingers nice and high, probably having that sort of 4 versus 3 in the top line. Then I think Caicedo is going to sort of play in that one pivot. I'm essentially going back to the 4-3-3 that we've been playing in recent weeks, where we have those two players who can create the +1 by dropping in. So you start in the 4-3-3, but how it shifts is essentially, let's say Fernandes drops a bit deeper, like this. The double pivot attaches here. So if we get rid of this, the double pivot attaches up like that, and you've got a 5-man press versus a 6 in terms of the back 4, and then the 2 double pivot. So you've got a 6 versus 5 for Chelsea there, and then Pedro would push up a little bit higher, and you'd essentially then have Chelsea, who actually have, well, Tottenham have a +1 here because of the +1 that Chelsea are having in this scenario in build-up. However, again, I think the idea would be that if João Pedro is sort of floating between the lines, one of the centre-backs will be aggressive with him and they'll follow him out. Same with Fernandes. And again, if it can be, let's say it shifts the other way. Let's say Pedro drops a little bit deeper. Fernandes is a little bit higher, just on one occasion. The pivot is a little bit distorted like this. And then this centre-back has to jump out. So I think what Chelsea will be looking to do is alternate that so that they can move these centre-backs and force them to jump out, and then have those runners attack that space in behind, whether it's from wide or whether it's from in the pockets, Fernandes and Pedro. When Tottenham are so willing to press man for man, this is where I think Chelsea could have a little bit of joy. Because as I've just said, let's say this player is going to, let's say it's Danso, and he's going to press all the way with Fernandes. Let's say Fernandes drops all the way over to here, and he's pressed all the way out. Now, what you've actually got here, and if Chelsea are in a bit more settled possessions, you've got the 2 at the base, and then James would probably be a little bit more central. So you'd essentially have Cucurella, and let's say that's sort of, they're pressing man for man. Cucurella has now drifted forward, and like we've seen in the past, there's been those rotation moments where Fernandes drops deeper, and we did this against Liverpool really, really well, where Fernandes was able to drag Gravenberch out of position into these areas that he doesn't want to be in. So Danso out from the back 5 into this area that he doesn't want to be in. Cucurella then takes up this position a bit higher, and he's the one offering that run in behind and being the threat, which can then drag players away and give Garnacho space out wide. It can mean that this player has to come in and Garnacho can attack the box. It can mean Guiu, it can mean Pedro, and you're able to attack that last line with an overload at that point. So I do think that rotations between the half-space players and the fullbacks, more so on the left side because of the way that you want to utilise Reece in this game. And I think that he'll be sort of a little bit more assigned to Xavi Simons, who I think will play on the left with Kudus on the right. I do think that especially Cucurella and Fernandes, their rotations could be really key to unlocking this Tottenham defensive scheme, even if they play in a back 4, but even more so if they play in a back 5, with how I think one of the centre-backs will jump out aggressively. Now, defensively for Chelsea, it's important to sort of speak about how we could press, because I do think the way Tottenham have been sort of building up lately and what has been their issues. So apparently in the week against Newcastle, it was a little bit better. I didn't actually watch that game back, but I have seen sort of bits about it that people have said their build-up was slightly better. They played in a little bit more of a 3-4-2-1, utilising the pivot a little bit more to actually play out from the back. Now, what has been their issues in recent weeks is almost missing this midfield pivot, which has then sort of stunted their progression on getting players like Xavi Simons on the ball in here. What they've instead been doing is essentially doubling up in wide areas, whether that be one of the fullbacks pushing higher or one of the number 8 sort of shuffling over and trying to win those either 2v1 or 2v2 duels in wide areas. That is where they've been trying to sort of utilise their progression and sort of bypass the midfield. Now, that is something that could hurt Chelsea, of course, because we've not been great at sort of being first to those direct balls, making the first contact, and making sure that we can't be put under pressure by that. So, how we press in this game will be interesting. Now, if you just assume that they're going to at least push, because they've got 3 at the back, so they've got that base 3. I don't think they're going to do anything really unique with the 3. I think they'll stick with that quite fixed. Not a doggy, because he is back, but I do think Spence will play. So I think he'll push on and Xavi Simons will come inside. So I think then with the front 4, it will be quite spread out in that sense of that sort of first line of 4. You've then got the double pivot, and then I think Porro will have a bit of a free role. So whether Chelsea decide for Garnacho to join that front press, a little bit like we did against Liverpool, Kukurea to jump up, a Chempong to shuffle over, and Fofana to sort of take this role, or Casado to even sort of shuffle over and take that role, will be interesting because, like I say, you've got the 2v2 in here. Casado can sort of cover and be a little bit of a depth player to support a Chempong. And this could be where Chempong has a chance to go 1v1 in the duel with Kudus, who's very good at making it stick in wide areas from direct balls. So could a Chempong be the guy to be really aggressive with him, but also then have the athleticism to recover if Kudus does manage to get it under control and sort of face him up 1v1 where it could be a little bit dangerous. A Chempong's probably the one that I'd be most comfortable with dealing with that in a wide area with the sort of long stride and that ability to cover. So that's where I'm at in terms of picking that left-sider. Now, alternatively, Kukurea does stay a bit deeper. Garnacho sort of doesn't make that jump as often, or if at all. And then instead, you've almost got a 4-for-4 in that back line. You've got Fernandez and Pedro in the middle, sort of pressing that pivot. And then you've got Casado as that +1, where he can aggressively challenge either side, or one of the centre-backs can, and he can cover to make sure that we don't get outnumbered in these wide duels when that ball does go long. So that's alternatively another option. And then, of course, if that is going to be passed on, Neto is kind of free, so he could then be the one that jumps up, and it could sort of shift a little bit differently and have Neto jumping from the right. But this game is going to be interesting, to say the least. Now, of course, a lot of people will sort of be looking at it and thinking this lineup is crazy because Gittins played really well. He should be starting over Garnacho. Esteval not starting again. He should be starting over Neto. But I do think that this is a game where we have to take our time. I think that, and again, people won't like this, I don't mind us this game starting with this sort of 4-3-3 and trying to figure out how they're going to press and how they're going to play. Are they playing in a back 5? Are they playing in a back 4? Are they going to press high? Figure that out first with sort of a core personnel on the pitch. And then later into the half, you have game changers like Gittins and Esteval. Now, I would like him to be a little bit more proactive with how quickly he brings those on. Esteval, yes, he's been coming on quite early, but Gittins, I think it was 70 plus, like 72 minutes against Sunderland. I think he was needed earlier in that game. So I would like him to be a bit more proactive with those two from the bench as and when we need them. But I do think this one is going to be about figuring it out as we go along throughout this game, figure out what Tottenham are coming into this game to do, because Thomas Frank is very adaptable. So I think the broad game plan will be something like we've discussed today, but you have to be willing to make those tweaks as and when we need them and sort of figure out what Tottenham are doing on the fly. Now, another option, just really quickly, could be that Guiu doesn't start, Pedro leads the line, and we go for somebody in here that can be intense man for man, but also make those runs off the back. So I wouldn't even be surprised if we saw Gusto in midfield again, which people, again, they will not like. I would love that to be Santos as well. I think he offers that's not the same intensity, but he's very willing to make those runs in behind, and he offers that extra bit of physicality. He's an actual midfielder. He's got the technical quality. So I'd love to see Santos start as well for that reason. Some people might say Lavia. I don't think he offers that. Obviously, he doesn't offer that sort of running in beyond. So if we was to do that, then, and it was Lavia to start in there as a 3, then it would even more so tell me that we are trying to figure out what Tottenham are doing first before we really take it to them in the second half. So lots of different ways this game could go. Let me know your predictions down below. Let me know any questions you have, and I'll try to get to them in the comment section before the game, which is at 5:30 tomorrow. And I think that is all we really have time to talk about today, because I think we've sort of got into the nuts and bolts of what I think is going to happen. So, like I said, I'd love to hear what you guys think is going to happen and who you think the important duels are going to be, the key battles in this game, and score predictions, all that good stuff. I'm going to go 2-1 Chelsea. I think that this is the sort of game that gets us up for it. We need that sort of mentality boost. And this is the sort of game where if we win it, the feel-good factors can carry for quite a few games, as it did against Liverpool. And I think we need that again after the topsy-turvy, the loss against Sunderland, and then, yes, the win against Wolves, but a very odd second half against Wolves. So I do think we need a result like this, a big one, a London derby, to get us back on track and sort of keep stepping forward. Hope you guys have enjoyed. We'll be back with a review on Monday. Hopefully it's to review a win, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Up the Chelsea.